few light bulbs went off today, to say the least. A few nights ago, I made a video where I was talking about some things that had come to the surface related to money messages, specifically around how to design a coaching business that works, and the many messages out there related to that. And today I actually happened to be on another call with a different perspective on this. And of course, it's not only the perspective of the person giving the material, but the perspective of the listener that creates the magic or the message or just the charge and the effect of an interaction. So I've been bringing this stuff to the surface during these videos, and as I listened to this call, a lot of it was very relevant and very clear and very resonant for me. And then we got to a point where we talked about programs, and I had lamented this in the previous video about how it's sort of like, the tried and true formula for building a coaching business that works is programs. And I'd sort of rolled my eyes in the past because I'd attempted to design things in advance and deliver programs for my coaching business, but I sort of always resisted this idea of getting into commitments. And I'll just jump to my realization today, which came about through my noticing the tension or the skepticism that arose during this particular part of the call, and then my courage to actually raise my hand and ask a question and enter into a dialogue with this person about it. And it wasn't anything that she said, but it was me listening to myself voice the question and feel what my concerns were that came up. And then after the call, I did my own mapping about it, visual mapping about the thoughts that I had. And I realized that my fear or hesitation around creating programs has to do with my past experience, which I also talked about in a previous video. Here's the magic of putting things into voice. My fear of getting into commitments and making promises to people that I wouldn't be able to keep. So if you recall my story about my violin school, I got to this point where I could not send the invoices out anymore because I could not keep the promise that I had made. And when I really honestly look at the promise I made to those people, I made a promise for the duration of their children's life from 3 years old to 17, because that's what I experienced in my path. I had the same teacher, and we were extremely loyal from 3 to 17, and there was no end point, and the claim of that teacher was, I'm the ultimate teacher, I can teach you everything. And I remember having a few points in time during my violin school thinking, you know what I really love the most? I love teaching 3-year-olds till they're about 5. And then they can go somewhere else, it's fine. They're like, their peak cuteness is maxed out for me, and they can go on, they can move on. I don't need to get into all of the details of teaching them how to play all the way up to Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto, which is what my teacher did, taking me from scratch to that. And that was her. And she would always say, oh, you can teach them anything. You should tell them that you can teach their children Seesaw to Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto. And I heard that, and it was her compliment to me. It was trying to elevate my own self-respect and value. But there was a very important whisper there. And that whisper was my desire to have an endpoint. My desire to release people and allow them to leave. And for me to focus on what I loved doing the most, and just to do that. And to specialize and not have that mental responsibility of taking someone up through college, which especially for the population I was working with, that was a very tall order, because it got very competitive right around age 10 when you started having to apply to high schools and, think about all that. And I didn't want any part of that. I wanted to be part of this beautiful seed planting and activation and this special time in a parent's life when they're really discovering everything. And there was a really great opportunity there to be part of that. And then it got caught up in all the other stuff. So what I was able to uncover today in the coaching call was I was unwilling to really put programs out there that packaged what I know into right-sized chunks for people to learn and grow and practice and have a solid set of tools to accomplish something in an area of their life that they want to heal, transform, or create. I stopped short of creating that program or any of those programs because I didn't want to get anywhere near that old situation I was in, which was committing to someone's development and being trapped by that, me being trapped by it. And so as a result, it has been in the past difficult for me to build traction, not only on the financial side, but with the relationship itself with clients, because it's always sort of been, I've been very passive in saying, you decide when you're ready, you decide. And by doing that, by giving my power away, I have actually not stepped into the full power of what I have to offer and how I learned it, which was by heavy investment in committed programs where there was a time, there was a dollar amount, and there was a volume of information, knowledge, and practices that came at me, and that's how I made my changes. I had that support and empowerment from someone, not just giving me stuff for free or crumbs, but giving me the opportunity to fully participate and invest in my growth and development. So it's sort of like I realized how I'd thrown the baby out with the bathwater, but it's okay because I had to come to this realization in this way today, in this moment. And to see like, okay, my power in this moment is to select the elements of this program approach that make sense, which are mainly the financial, but also the true empowerment of the client who is coming to me to invest in real results in their lives. And I honor that by giving them a way, a path that actually could achieve that, rather than, oh, well, we'll see, and we'll work once and see how it works out. And then we'll work for 30 days and see how that works out. And then on the other hand, end of the spectrum, it's not saying, okay, everyone who comes in the door has to enroll for a year minimum. And I have one way of working with me, which is how the Violin School was. Everyone that came in and actually enrolled had to commit to a full year. And that was probably right for that particular model, because that was the unfolding process for that particular journey. And so for me, my work now is to really look at what are the desired outcomes for people who come to me and for what I offer. What are the chunks of right-sized materials and programs where they can learn a set of skills that gives them something to work with in their lives, and then step fully into actually delivering it. And I see where I have really hesitated up until this point in truly doing that. I've done it in small ways here and there in order to learn and experiment. And now I'm really feeling, hearing, and seeing that it's time to step up and forward into a clearer expression of that. And what I realized from doing these videos is I have volumes of learning to share. And it's a matter of finding the right size chunks in which to share it. And so that's what I wanted to say about my realizations today about programs and design, and leaning into, this is the last thing I want to say, leaning into the doubts and the questions and the discomfort, which is what I did by bringing it to the surface in the videos and then paying attention when it came up again in the call, and then stepping up and asking the question, having the conversation that revealed to me, wow, the connection between all of these things. And then sitting down with myself to see it, and it's still surfacing right now as I speak. This is how the clarity comes in. And it's not by sitting in a room alone or reading a book or going through a program. It's this process of allowing and paying attention and being alert and giving yourself the space and the tools to make the connections. So that was my big learning from today.